They're live.
Welcome and greetings to everyone wherever you are in the world. And we're here under really grim circumstances, and we're really glad that you can join because this is really a time that should and is bringing us together as a country. And we're living in really dark times, I must say. And it's not the end because there's always light at the end of the tunnel. And so we're here today because one of um, our father, our brother, and one that was really known historically for fighting for democracy and for humanity, is what I want to say, has been killed. And he was murdered. He was killed just you know, like an animal. And it is very sad and has brought out a lot of emotions. And I am grateful that we have the opportunity through technology across the world to be able to gather as we get to know who this man was and he, who he is for our country, how it's impacted our country and hence our own lives. And why was he killed the way he was killed in this government? But without going any further, I would like to introduce the panel as it continues to build up. We have Are Obenson and also the renowned Eric Chinje. And I will, go to you, Eric. And what does this mean? What does it say about our country? What does all of this mean? That's what we're looking for: meaning, understanding.
Yeah, thanks, Elizabeth. I hope you can hear me. Um, of course, we all are trying to figure things out, as we've seen the country
Eric, we are on
cross.
English and French platforms, so you might
Can
want to
someone is?
address the French audience.
Oh,
Kings.
can you hear? Can you hear me, Kingsley? But,
You're fine now.
oh, okay. Um, I mean, we're all just, trying to deal with this now, trying to understand what has really happened. I mean, it takes on a very personal uh, aspect as far as I'm concerned, because I spoke to Anise, what, just over a week ago, or before he was being taken out to Yaoundé. That the day he was being taken out to Yaoundé, a number of us spoke with him. How could anybody imagine that um, this was the death knell? This was, the arrest of a candidate that afternoon was signing his death knell. I'm still unable to process this whole thing. And it, what it, the, you know, what's most disturbing about this is that it's happening. I mean, it's almost like a live execution of a human being. It's almost as if we're living through this live execution. That's what's so hard to understand and to deal with. You know, we're hearing that the government is angry that Anise and Jekam Chamini, we haven't spoken enough about Njekam. We know Njekam is somewhere in one of the prisons of the Republic. How safe is he being there? We've not even had time to we've not had time to process the passing of Anise, and yet we've got in our hands the fate of a number of people, including Jekam Chamini, that we have to deal with. And that's the country in which we are, where you can wake up one morning, interact with friends, and for no apparent reason, life, it's almost like a candle just switched off, you know. And if we're not careful, life goes on. There's no reason, there's no remorse. I don't hear a lot of people. I've heard the theatrics around Anise's death, but I don't think that I've heard the profundity, the profoundness, of a nation that should be in mourning. Today, the sun rose over Cameroon, and it looked like it was back to life as usual. The reason for this live program streaming is precisely to remind ourselves that it cannot be life. It cannot be back to things. It cannot be back to things as normal. I really hope that those of us with a conscience, those of us who refuse to accept the Cameroon that we've been cast into by those who believe they control and govern the country, I think, it's just hard for me to deal with it. So I'm really, I spoke a few minutes ago to the sister of Anise, who's in, and I'm hoping she'll join us at some point to express her views on what is going on. Marianne, she's in France, but she's in a daze from what I could see. She's in a daze. She's just totally unable to understand what are these negative forces? What are these dark clouds that kind of lie, seem to cover the nation, cover, outcomes in Cameroon today. So I don't know, as we go forward, the reason for coming together is so that all of us can come together in a collective state of maybe remorse, but certainly of mourning. We should come together and, as a nation, take stock of what is happening. And if this does not remind us of certain values that we must respect, the values of life, of liberty, of family, of happiness. I mean, this is that coming together that we hope this program and what we do going forward would remind the national conscience, all of us, that there are some things we should not, cannot, must not accept. We cannot accept that a political leader is killed simply because he holds views that are contrary to ours. Along the same lane, we should not accept that a leader of the nation should be, I'll use a kind term, on exile, simply because he offered to serve the nation as a leader. We've got to collectively reflect on these things. That's the purpose of us getting together on these platforms. One of us, either Array or Elizabeth would give the full count. I know there's Mzimanto, Mimimefo, Rebecca's ex, from our Twitter. All of these platforms that we have, I think Beyond Africa podcast with Bernard Ngalim and a host of others, Paul Chuta and the rest of them. I think we're all together. And again, the point is to provide us this platform to reflect together on what has gone so seriously wrong in this nation that needs to be corrected. And we've got to face it. We've got to talk about it. We've got to look ourselves in the eye and say, this is not the Cameroon we wanted to be born into, and this is not the Cameroon we will accept going forward. We've got to something has got to give. I don't know if we're hearing enough from the men and women of God, the church folk, the priests and imams and the pastors. I don't know if we're hearing enough from them. I hope that a number of them will come onto this platform to help us deal with this national collective trauma. If anyone is in Douala, if you're in Yaoundé, you're in any of these places, in Limbe, in Kumba, in Bemenda, and you can come onto this platform to help us deal with this. A number of us are sitting in the diaspora and finding it just so hard to internalize and accept, what has just happened. And the death of Anissé it's symbolic, is a symbol that should lead us into a sense of a new dispensation, political dispensation. This should be what takes us to that place. And we've got to pull ourselves together. J'aimerais bien le dire en français parce que cette émission est une... c'est une communion des Camerounais de bonne volonté à travers le pays et à travers la diaspora, que nous voulons que ce soit, n'est-ce pas, une place de réflexion pour réfléchir sur le devenir de notre pays. Est-ce que le Camerounais que nous sommes, le Camerounais que nous sommes tous, on doit accepter, n'est-ce pas, ce genre d'événement où un leader politique est assassiné ou chassé de son pays, refoulé, tout simplement parce qu'il a voulu servir son peuple. C'est ce que Anissé Kane a voulu faire. C'est ce que Issa Chiroma a fait. C'est ce que Njokam Tchameni a voulu faire. Qui sont ceux qui se posent la question de savoir pourquoi M. Chiroma est là où il est aujourd'hui. Pourquoi Njokam Tchameni est là où il est aujourd'hui. Et puis, pourquoi notre frère Anissé, pourquoi on l'a obligé de quitter ce monde? Et est-ce que ceux qui l'ont fait ont le droit de rester tranquilles, dormir ce soir avec leur famille, manger ce soir avec leurs enfants et leurs femmes et autres? Est-ce qu'ils ont le droit? Et pourquoi ils ont refusé ça à Anissé, qui était avec nous il y a quelques jours? Tout simplement parce que on leur a donné la possibilité de gérer notre pays. Je ne comprends pas. Je ne comprends pas. Pourquoi tous ces gens-là sont en prison aujourd'hui? Ayouk Tabé, Terence, Manchobe Bixi, Félix Ngalim, ainsi de suite. Pourquoi ces gens sont en prison aujourd'hui? Vamouké. Amadou Vamouké. Rien que pour des raisons politiques. Pour des raisons politiques. Une raison pour ne pas mériter sa place sous le soleil avec les siens. Aujourd'hui, nous sommes ensemble tout de suite là, nous sommes ensemble pour pousser la réflexion, pour dire non, assez, pour commencer, pour demander, n'est-ce pas, l'émergence d'un autre Cameroun qui nous convient tous, dans lequel nous nous sentons vraiment en liberté, n'est-ce pas, à l'aise. Il est temps que les Camerounais se posent cette question et il est temps d'exiger une réponse qui nous convienne. C'est la raison pour ce que nous sommes en train de faire maintenant. Se retrouver pour dire non, enough is enough. Et j'espère qu'on va le faire tout au long de cette émission. Et comme j'ai dit, ceux qui peuvent nous aider à mieux comprendre. Que vous soyez, n'est-ce pas, un imam ou un pasteur, un prêtre, l'archevêque. Que vous soyez même un homme politique. Parce que il y a une autre vérité. On n'a pas beaucoup entendu les voix des hommes et des femmes politiques. Pas beaucoup. Vous êtes où? Vous êtes où? Rentrez dans cette maison virtuelle que nous avons, où nous sommes en train de se retrouver pour se poser des véritables questions. Est-ce que c'est le Cameroun que nous méritons? Et si ce n'est pas le Cameroun que nous méritons, il est temps de dire non à ceux qui veulent nous imposer, n'est-ce pas, leur vision de notre pays. Il est temps d'insister là-dessus. Et c'est pour ça que nous sommes là. De penser à notre frère, Anissé Kane, à penser à tous ceux qui sont là où ils ne doivent pas être. Je veux dire bien à Nobel, à Kondengui, et ainsi de suite. Pensez à tous ceux-là. Et ça nous coûte quoi de revenir, n'est-ce pas, à des meilleurs sentiments vis-à-vis de la population camerounaise. Ça nous coûte quoi? Donc, je remercie Elisabeth et Harry. Nous sommes ensemble, nous allons rester ensemble. Je vais leur passer la parole parce qu'il y a d'autres personnes qui doivent intervenir. Et comme je dis, nous sommes ensemble pour réfléchir. We are together to think as a family about what next. How do we change this country? We cannot accept Cameroon as it is. This dark cloud that covers this country has to dissipate. We need to see better. We need to see the sun again because we merit it. So, anyway,
Yes.
all right,
And
Elizabeth. Mm-hmm.
yes, so I'm going to bring Ari in. Thank you so much, Eric. It's just a time for such deep contemplation of how we've really gotten ourselves here. I think that's the hardest thing I've been thinking about. We can't point fingers. How have we gotten ourselves here? How have we accepted and tolerated what has led to an open killing of a human being who is just being a human, fighting for the rights of other people, is where it is. So, Ari, I'm going to bring Ari Obenson in and just tell us about Anissa Kane, who really was this guy. Let's really talk about, who he was. I think you're still muted. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ellie, for opening us up, putting this session up. And Eric, thanks for that deep reflection, that moment of reflection, which invites all of us to think about this moment. But as we think about it, we're gathered here because this country lost somebody who essentially dedicated his adult life to fighting for democracy, for freedom, for justice in Cameroon, at great cost to him and his family. And it's really important that we take a moment to just reflect on who Aniset Ekane was. And I can only do this in just reading a tribute that Project C put together. And I'm just going to read portions of it, which is really powerful. And it starts by Aniset Ekane, the lion who never knelt. It's a tribute to a martyr of Cameroonian democracy. Aniset was born on April 17, 1951, and died on the 1st of December 2025. He had a particular quote that he always used. Politics is like a bicycle. You must keep paddling or you fall. This tribute goes on to say, Aniset Ekane paddled until his last breath. For 50 years, through prisons and torture chambers, through exile and persecution, through mockery and threats, he never stopped. He never knelt. He never sold his conscience to the highest bidder. And on December 1st, 2025, shackled in a military cell in Yaoundé, denied his oxygen concentrator, denied medical care, denied his humanity, Judge Aniset Ekane drew his final breath as he had drawn his first political one. He did so defiant, unbowed, and free. The Biya regime did not merely allow him to die, they killed him. I would like to repeat this in French, with my accent there. Hommage au martyr de la démocratie camerounaise. Né le 17 avril 1951, il a rendu l'âme le 1er décembre 2025. Aniset Ekane avait toujours dit, la politique, c'est comme un vélo. Il faut tout le temps pédaler, sinon on tombe. Aniset Ekane a pédalé jusqu'à son dernier souffle. Pendant 50 ans, à travers les prisons et les salles de torture, à travers l'exil et la persécution, à travers les moqueries et les menaces, il ne s'est jamais arrêté. Il ne s'est jamais agenouillé. Il n'a jamais vendu sa conscience aux plus offrants. Et le 1er décembre, enchaîné dans une cellule militaire à Yaoundé, privé de son concentrateur d'oxygène, privé des soins médicaux, privé de son humanité, Georges Aniset Ekane a rendu son dernier souffle comme il avait rendu son premier souffle politique, toujours défaillant, insoumise et libre. Le régime Biya ne l'a pas simplement laissé mourir, ils l'ont tué. I just wanted to start with just this introduction of the, which sums up essentially what his life was, 50 years of his life was for our country. So many people may know him. Now even the government acknowledges through its own communications that he was the president of Manidem. The same government that on their own website, when there was the case with MRC, said he was not the president of Manidem. Today they acknowledge that he is. So many people know him as president of Manidem and know him because of recent action, but this man entered politics as far back as 1971 when he joined the UPC as a student in France, came back to Cameroon and got involved in the struggle, arrested so many times, thrown in jail twice. He was amongst the first victims in the struggle for multipartism in Cameroon, even before the launch of SDF. Aniset Ekani, along with Yondo Black and Esther Ekwe, were arrested and condemned and actually went to prison. 6 months in prison before being pardoned by the president, the then president, to come out and continue the fight. You know, after he was part of the Union for Change that came together for the election of John Frundi. And in similar circumstances where John Frundi won the elections and President Biya hung on to power. But the Union for Change did not stop. For nearly 2 years, this country was held spellbound by the calls by Villemort, primarily in Douala, led by Aniset Ekani, the same actors playing a key role, introducing what they call carton rouge, carton jaune, forcing this government into having the tripartite talks, which led to the constitution that we have today. So this man has been fighting for us to have the little freedoms that we are losing today with his death. And so we honor him today, not just because it's a life that has been lost today, but this is a man who has given everything, his life, his breath, literally gave his breath for our country. And so we honor, this is why we have to take this moment to just reflect on that. What is it that we can learn from his life that should inspire us to keep the vision that he had for Cameroon alive? There's another example of who this man is. Manidem is one of the rare political parties in Cameroon that has seen a change in its president. Whilst the president is still alive, the Manidem party has had 6 presidents since its creation. There's no other party in Cameroon that has done that. Not the SDF, no other party, and did that in such a way that he gave other people the opportunity to run the party, to bring their own perspective to the Manidem party. He was the founding president, and he could have been the founding president for the last 30 years. He chose not to. This is also a man who has been candidate for president in our country twice, but also has the ability to recognize that other people can be candidates and that he can support other people to be candidates in the interest of the country and not position himself all the time to run as president. So this is the exemplary character whose life has been taken away because he was fighting for all of us to have the kind of country that we deserve. And so we just wanted to take a moment you can see all the newspaper headlines. Yeah. I don't know whether anybody whose life has been covered. Nearly 16 newspaper headlines have Aniset Ekani. And people have been very, very clear in a country that is supposed to be censoring newspapers. They can't censor this because it is obvious. You can't stop people from talking about this because it is obvious, it is evident. And it is also, it is brutal. It's such a heinous crime committed by the state. And for all of those who talk about people who went down the street and manifesting and destroying, there is no crime that is worse than this.
Yes.
So if you are going to be putting people in New Bell, and you're going to be putting people in Kondengi, then everybody who has their hands around this case, who touched any administrative paperwork, who guarded any cell, who made decisions, who signed warrants of arrest if they can prove that there was any, each one of them should be sitting in New Bell or Kondengi or in Baturi, where Anise Ekane served as prisoner at one point. These people should be in jail. And we will talk a little bit about what this crime means. We will look at law and international conventions and why heads must roll as we speak with reference to this case. He was a great man. He was a man who should inspire us to continue his work. Who will be the next Anicet Ekane? That's
exactly. He's so unique because he's an outstanding humanitarian. You know, we have the Mandelas, you know, we have Martin Luther King. He is that for us, you know, all that. And I think that's why he appeals to our humanity. And it's so real, it's so authentic. It's not something that is made up. And that's why we all feel the way we do. That's why the country must stop. And that's why 16 newspapers are carrying him across the board. And that's why it is the main conversation and the only conversation to be had. You know, it is time for Cameroon to stop. And like Eric said, let's reflect. This is a time for us to reflect. It is a time for reflection. Who are we as a people? Who are we as a people? Do we understand our unity? Do we understand our oneness? Do we understand our power? What have we chosen to do with our power? Where did we become complacent? Where did we allow amongst us for this to be developed? Well, there's breaking news. Professor Maurice Kamto just reacts to the death of Anith Ekane. And like he said, they killed him, which is true. So let's watch.
Ils l'ont tué. Ils ont tué le président du Manidem, Georges Anissé Ekane. Depuis ma déclaration du 25 septembre 2025, faite sur la base de la résolution du Conseil national du MRC du 6 septembre 2025, par laquelle il était laissé à chaque électeur la liberté de voter en son âme et conscience pour un candidat de l'opposition de son choix, je m'étais imposé le silence, car notre parti était et demeure à ce jour dirigé par le président national par intérim, M. Mamadou Yacouba Mota. J'ai repris la parole le 17 octobre face à la gravité des premières violences post-électorales pour exhorter à la retenue, à l'esprit de discernement, au respect de la vie humaine et du verdict des urnes. La tragédie du moment présent m'impose de prendre à nouveau la parole, simple militant que je suis de mon parti, après la concertation d'usage, en raison des liens qui se sont tissés entre le président Anissé Ekane et nous, dans la perspective de l'élection présidentielle d'octobre 2025. Sa mort en détention heurte violemment les consciences. Je porte en mon âme son deuil que ravive le souvenir de chacune de nos rencontres, pourtant si peu nombreuses. Je m'étais promis de rendre visite au président Ekane, au professeur Jean Calvin Abaoyono et à M. Dieukam Tchamini après la convention extraordinaire du MRC prévue le 29 novembre 2025. Ce jour-là, j'ai convenu avec quelques-uns des avocats qui accompagnent ces détenus politiques de faire cette visite hier lundi 1er décembre 2025 à 9 h. Le jour dit, alors que je m'approchais du secrétariat d'État à la Défense, où ils sont détenus au camp Yayap à Yaoundé, j'ai appelé un des avocats pour avoir leur position. C'est avec le décès d'Anissé Ekane qu'on m'a accueilli. Le président Georges Anissé Ekane a été assassiné par la haine de Maurice Kamto, l'exécration du MRC, la détestation d'Issa Chiroma Abakari, le mépris de la démocratie et l'angoisse du changement. Au regard des circonstances qui entourent sa mort, celle-ci ne peut être regardée autrement que comme un authentique crime d'État. Cher Anissé, malgré les épreuves de la vie et la violence de la prison, que tu avais déjà expérimenté par le passé, toujours pour tes opinions politiques, je crois pouvoir dire, de la distance qui était la mienne.
Oui, bonjour, c'est Marc de la société Solutions Pro.
Laissez-moi tranquille, j'en ai rien à faire de tout ça.
Laisse-moi deviner, Marc, encore un procès.
Que tu n'as jamais renoncé à tes convictions nationalistes. Je parle de ton attachement profond à un Cameroun véritablement libre, souverain et soucieux du bien-être de tous ses enfants. Malgré des moments de confusion et de relâchement, ces convictions sont restées comme une veilleuse au fond de toi. Il faut plaindre les âmes errantes, vides de toute substance, qui se moquent de tout, rient de tout, et qui, dans leurs desseins ténébreux, croient pouvoir banaliser ta mort héroïque. Ils espèrent pouvoir distraire le peuple camerounais, comme ils l'ont fait si souvent dans le passé, face à des morts jamais élucidées et échapper ainsi à leurs responsabilités juridiques, politiques. La détestation d'Issa, toujours pour tes opinions, pour ne jamais renoncer à tes convictions nationalistes. Je parle de ton attachement profond à un Cameroun véritablement libre, souverain et soucieux du bien-être de tous ses enfants. Malgré des moments de confusion et de relâchement, ces convictions sont restées comme une veilleuse au fond de toi. Il faut plaindre les âmes errantes, vides de toute substance, qui se moquent de tout, rient de tout, et qui, dans leurs desseins ténébreux, croient pouvoir banaliser ta mort héroïque. Ils espèrent pouvoir distraire le peuple camerounais, comme ils l'ont fait si souvent dans le passé, face à des morts jamais élucidées et échapper ainsi à leurs responsabilités juridiques, politiques, morales et historiques pour l'assassinat froidement exécuté d'un compatriote malade, dirigeant politique connu, uniquement pour cause de divergences dans les choix politiques. Ta mort fertilisera la lutte de notre peuple pour son émancipation totale. Ton holocauste suit ceux des héros nationaux qui t'ont précédé sur le long chemin de cette lutte. Tu inaugures une nouvelle page du martyrologue camerounais, celle de l'assassinat en détention de leaders et militants politiques camerounais, pas des Camerounais. Sur les uns et les autres plane désormais le même spectre de la mort, par la main noire du règne des ténèbres. À qui sera le tour suivant? Pour ma part, comme toi, je suis né ici, je vis ici et je mourrai ici. Si le pire devait arriver, nous l'attendrions ici, dans la dignité. Et les humiliations répétées n'y changeront rien. Cher Anissé, ta mort inaugure une nouvelle phase de la lutte, celle où les Camerounais sont revenus de toutes leurs illusions, mais où leur ardeur sera décuplée afin que tu ne sois pas mort en vain et qu'ils aient un jour l'occasion de célébrer ta grandeur d'âme, le panache avec lequel tu as quitté la scène au terme d'un parcours remarquable en cette année 2025. Car de la grandeur, tu nous en as montré. Au moment où nous t'avons approché pour obtenir l'investiture du Manidem à l'élection présidentielle d'octobre dernier, alors que tous avant toi avaient exigé de l'argent, on en est resté ensemble sur les idées. Et tu fus manifestement sensible à l'appel de l'histoire. Lorsque je me fis auprès de toi l'écho de cet appel, j'ai pu noter à quel point il a résonné en toi. Mais je ne pouvais me douter que tu entrerais aussi vite au panthéon des martyrs de la lutte du peuple camerounais. On se préparait à te poser des lauriers bien mérités le moment venu. Maintenant que la vie t'a été arrachée sans pitié à la lutte, ceux qui exécutent la danse macabre dans notre pays croient en leur victoire éternelle. Mais notre lutte commune, celle de tout le peuple camerounais, se poursuivra, plus puissante que jamais, sur des générations encore s'il le faut, mais elle aboutira. La paix de ton visage que j'ai contemplé lundi matin sur ton lit de mort est le serment que tu nous en donnes. La lumière brillera sur le Cameroun, inéluctablement. May your soul rest in perfect peace.
Oh, wow. They killed him. They assassinated President Anissa Ekane because of hatred towards Maurice Kamto and the MRC, and because of the detestation of Issa Shiroma, they assassinated him. Yeah.
Those are practical,
Yeah.
strong words, but it's just a fact. It's the fact that we're living with, that because you choose to support a particular candidate, because you come from a particular expression, political expression, you become the enemy of the state, and a state that is shrinking in size, in magnitude. It's shrinking every day by just its sheer act of it's become just too small to be called a country, to represent a country like Cameroon. And those words from the words that Maurice Kamto just shared with us, as strong as they may seem, shocks our conscience that this is of our country he speaks of.
Yes.
Heartbreaking.
Heartbreaking. And is very, very emotional because, it's still, you listen to him, the description, obviously, he knew the man very well. And it's just sad. I almost like words because I think Kamto, every one of his words, Eric, I think we can, every single thing he said. My prayer and hope is that as Cameroonians, we're listening. This is a defining moment. Life cannot continue as usual. This is a stop. And when we move forward, it has to be different. And otherwise, what's the meaning? What is the meaning, Eric?
Oh, okay. You can hear me. Yeah. All right. I was trying to turn on my microphone.
Okay, good. We can hear you.
Yes. Yeah, well, that's a good speech by Morris and Professor Kamto, and I'm really happy he did it because I was beginning to wonder what was going on with the political leadership of Cameroon. This moment can't pass without the voices of some of those people ringing in our ears. We need to hear from all of them. And we've heard from Issa Chiroma, we've heard from Maurice Kamto, but there are others. Where are they? This is a moment of, as much of a moment of national coming together, reconciliation, as we could ever get. So we should, I noticed when I was looking at the newspapers that all of the newspapers in the country, or most of the newspapers in the country, carried this death on the front pages, except Cameroon Tribune, the one national paper paid for by our taxes. How do we explain that? How do we even understand these contradictions? This is why it's important. We're not saying this against Cameroon Tribune. They cannot, on a day like this, when the entire nation, all the newspaper publishers in Cameroon felt that there was one story that deserved to be brought to the attention of the nation. How could the one paper, and I'm not taking on my friends of Cameroon Tribune, Marie-Claire Nana and her team, no. But there's I'm speaking to the conscience of the nation. How can we, on a day like this, and now it makes me wonder, does CRTV, Cameroon Television, paid for by us, do they have the death of Anissé as the lead story in tonight's news? Yeah, that newscast has already happened, and I'm not in Cameroon to know if the lead story was the death of Anissé.